Hey guys, it's Daniel. Welcome back.
The following is a clip from my interview with Red Hot Chili Peppers recording engineer Jim Scott. If you want to see the full interview, the link is available below. So, how does Flea approach recording bass? What's it like working with him?
It's spectacular. I mean, Flea bounces around, Flea's very energetic. He's funny. He's smart. He's very musical. He plays a bunch of instruments. He knows a lot about the bass tone. He always, I remember I forget what song it is on Californication, sort of a reggae one, forget the one. And we were trying to just get that reggae dub. We were just trying to get all your favorite reggae records. You just put them on it. They're just gigantically fat. They're just how do you get that sound? So, here we are at the best studio in the world with the best microphones, the best console, the best bass player. And we're trying to get it to sound like that. And he's trying and I'm trying and just putting more bass on it and more equalizers, more compressed, more tone, more just trying to dump it in. And sometimes you just can't do what your idols did. Sometimes you got to be in Jamaica with a really bad console and a bad tape recorder. And that's how you get that sound. There's no other way. It's a funny thing, but no, Flea's great and always prepared. And I don't remember hardly. The only thing we would ever fix is if he changed his mind and wanted to do a different sequence or something. But it wasn't I just got to play it again because I'm terrible. It's no, he went down with the drums. I don't think we ever overdubbed a whole bass track ever. Right?
Really?
The bass and drums went together. That's how you get that, and that's how they play. That's what they do.
So in general, with Flea, how many takes would you guys need to do then to get his bass tracks?
Well, just thinking back about Californication, I know we did Parallel Universe in just 4 takes. I'm it's sounding pretty good. Let's try one. But 18 minutes later on take 4, it was well, that record's done. Thank you.
That's cool.
We only tracked for 12 days and tracked probably close to 20 songs. So 1 or 2 songs a day. And by the time you get to the studio and have lunch and get sounds and change the drum heads and tell a few stories and do a few takes and do 2 songs, have dinner, you don't play it 20 times. You 10, 5, whatever, stop and start a few times, change the guitar sound, change the bass sound, put on a new drum head. It all takes time. They say the old joke is, well, it only takes 3 minutes to record a hit record, but that's not really true.
That's funny. So with Flea, is there any particular type of mic that he likes to use to record his bass parts, or is that totally up to you more or less?
Well, it was up to me at that time, but I was fortunate enough to be working at a really great recording studio, and Flea's bass, I think he kind of brought his bass rig from the tour. So it was big and it was pretty loud, but it wasn't loud for the sake of being loud. It was loud for the sake of the tone. But loud is not particularly dangerous for microphones if you don't mistreat them. So we put real expensive microphones on his bass cabinets. We used, kind of like the Beatles did, we used tube microphones, old Neumann tube microphones, not directly on the speaker, but in front of the amp to listen to the sound of the amp. And I'm sure we had a microphone right up inside the speaker, a more typical dynamic microphone recording the bass. We also recorded a DI, which is really common, a direct inject, just straight off the strings, not through an amp at all. And you blend those sounds together and you can sort of mix and match to make the sound. And that's pretty normal. It's just not every studio has that expensive of a microphone to put in front of a bass amp.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But Ocean Way did, and it was fine. We didn't hurt it. It's all good. This is that Ocean Way.
Ocean Way, gotcha. Okay.
Ocean Way, cello, east-west.
Gotcha.
So from a purely technical angle, is there anything unique in your opinion about the way Flea plays bass?
It's funny. I only ever did one other session with Flea outside of the Chili Peppers. I was doing a session somewhere for somebody, and Flea was the designated bass player of the day. And I don't remember it being a really good time. Really? It was I mean, you know, Flea can play anything. He can play any song for any artist right now. But you know, he's best in the Chili Peppers. I think he plays with his fingers. I think he just plays the right thing. I think he's super funky and got great time and is a very creative bass player. He thinks a lot and doesn't just play the chords. You know, he's moving around. He's got a lot. He's got a lot on his plate because it's not a big band. There's not a lot of guys. He's got to do a lot.
Interesting. That brief period that he was in Jane's Addiction, were you surprised that he joined the band?
No, it was music business is pretty small. All those guys are tight anyway. I met Flea actually in July of 1983. In 1983, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
In 1983, I was an assistant engineer at the record plant in Los Angeles, and I was, as we did in those days, one of the senior assistants would have free studio time overnight and would do demos with bands, local bands, and so it was a little out of my league, but I was assisting another guy who was doing a demo with a band, and the band was called What Is This? And Hillel was in that band.
That's cool.
And so that night we were recording a song called Mind My Have Still I. And I remember Flea came bouncing in, very young at that time, 1983. You know, he was a young man and full of energy, and everything was great. And we didn't really exchange numbers or connect or anything, but that's the night I met him. And there was also within a day or two of him getting his Jimi Hendrix tattoo on his arm.
Cool.
And I remember that he very proudly took off the Band-Aid to show us his fresh tattoo.
Yeah.
And like, well, that's all right. You know, that's really good. So I met Flea in the 80s, but, you know, then time went on. And a little later I met Dave Navarro.
Cool.
He's the cousin of a really good friend of mine, Dan Navarro. Dan Navarro is a singer, a songwriter, and I made a lot of records with his band. He had a band called Lowen and Navarro, and they wrote hit songs. And Dan actually wrote the song "We Belong," big hit record for Pat Benatar, and they had a record deal back in the day. And Dave came in as a really young kid, just starting out in Jane's Addiction, and played, you know, from like. This was a real folk rock kind of record, so he was struggling through an acoustic guitar part just to get his cousin on the record. So I met Dave when he was a little kid, and I met Flea when he was a little kid, and then, you know, and then time went on, and they had their career, and everything was going great, and they made a couple of records. It's tiny. Music business is tiny, and it's even smaller now. I mean, when there were big record companies and a lot of employees and a lot of A&R guys and office people and managers and everybody had a team. It seemed a little bit more big, but now, but you know, I mean, I've just been around a long time and I know a lot of people, but you know, you're basically one phone call away from just about anybody.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that a lot, actually. I think that's really cool.
I mean, they might not want to talk to you, but you know, if I wanted to get to somebody that I hadn't met, but I wanted to talk to about something, I could probably get to them in a phone call. You know, whether they take the call is something else, but It's not like, how do I get in touch with, you know, Adele? You know, I've never met Adele, but I know a bunch of people that know her well. So it's like, I suppose if I had something to say to her, I could find her, or Bruce Springsteen. You know, I mean, if you wanted to, you know, or Neil Young. I've actually met Neil Young, but if you wanted to like work with him, sorry, forgot about that. But you know what I mean? Like if you almost wanted to get to just about anybody, you could. Somebody knows them.
Yeah, it's cool. I like that a lot about the business. I think it's actually a nice touch in such a, like, again, like from the outside, it seems like it's such a huge thing, but once you start to get to know people, it's like, oh, everyone knows everyone. I like that. So it's kind of cool.
Music business is tiny.